Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today I'm going to answer a common question that I get from all kinds of people, which is really where to move in 2021 to pay low or no tax. And really this applies not just for 2021, but other times going forward, with the caveat being that, of course the rules are always changing, and so I'm going to give you kind of the most current update and give you some sort of ideas, and hopefully there's something useful in there for you. If you have any questions about these places, then by all means, I'm going to try and list the top 10 or so for you, but there's always other options and there's ways to plan around it as well. So, if you're interested in tax, you're saying, hey, listen, I'd like to move to some other place, but I'd like to, do some tax planning. Reach out to me. There's a link below, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer. You can click it below and book a call with me. Otherwise, check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com, to learn more about this stuff for international tax planning, how to pay the lowest legal amount of taxes, how to get residency permits, citizenships, second passports, investments, foreign companies, open bank accounts, etc. And if you haven't already, smash the subscribe button, click the notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on any of these future videos, and let's get into it. All right, so probably one of the most common things, I'll have people call me up and they'll say, hey, listen, I'm in Canada, I'm in the US, I'm in Australia, I'm in Germany, I'm in Denmark, I'm wherever, and where I'm thinking about relocating, where are some places to go? And we kind of discuss what the options are for them from a tax standpoint, okay? So I'm gonna start in Asia, and I'm gonna try and work my way across the world. These are not all zero tax. I've done some videos previously about where there's zero personal tax, and I've done some videos on where there's zero corporate tax. These are not necessarily zero tax, but they're low tax. They're favorable options that people might be interested in. This is not where you would necessarily form a company. You might do that, but often you'd have a company somewhere else. These are just places that you can go and you can get away with, pretty low tax legally, okay? So let's start with Philippines, okay? So Philippines is one that people don't talk that much about. Basically, you benefit from the fact that they have their territorial tax system. That's pretty decent. It's one place that actually they just got rid of one of their popular visa programs, unfortunately, but certainly still an option to go to Philippines, and certainly still an option to be able to take advantage of some low taxes if you plan properly in that situation. Again, not for everybody, but for a bunch of them. Number two is Thailand, okay? So Thailand, you can go there. They actually just bring in a new visa, which is, I think it's like a 6-month visa. You can get something called the Thai Elite visa. There's some ways to get work permits as well if you're in certain professions, etc. So it tends to be a pretty easy place to relocate. And they actually, interestingly, have, on the personal level, they have sort of a territorial tax system. You can basically not pay tax on money if you don't remit it into Thailand in that year. So you can basically keep it outside of the country for a year and then remit it to Thailand, and you can pay no tax on it. So very favorable. Now there's a whole conversation about people getting tax residency certificates and does that matter and all this. We're not going to cover that today, but the point is, potentially, if you would love to go and live in Thailand, either in Bangkok or the beaches or, Phuket or Chiang Mai or wherever, that's an option. All right. Number three, Malaysia. I'm a huge Malaysia fan, okay? I love Malaysia. I think it's fantastic. It's possible to, again, pay quite low tax in Malaysia, depending on the visa that you go there with. It could have some effect. For example, you can get a level 1 director's visa. In this case, you have to pay yourself a minimum salary and pay the full tax on that. And then dividends you receive, you can pay zero tax on, and you run through a company with 3%. So you can end up with, around 3% tax pretty easily in Malaysia. Depending on your sources of income and things like this, that's a whole other conversation. But the bottom line is Malaysia is a third one where a lot of people might like to go and pay pretty low tax. Moving across the world, we come to UAE. Now, a lot of people I find have an issue with UAE. I do have a number of clients who have moved there, lived there, etc. And UAE is a place that's improving fast. I was just there recently. I'm probably going back next month. We're doing quite a bit of stuff in UAE these days. Now, I think it's actually probably better than people tend to give it credit for. If you actually go and spend some time and you're willing to immerse yourself and figure things out, etc. It's not a cheap place to live by any stretch, but it's pure zero tax, and so very, very clean to live in UAE and pay low or no tax. Okay. Continuing across the world, or I guess it's not necessarily across the world, but anyway, Georgia is a place that you can go that's pretty popular. You can pay quite low taxes in Georgia. Again, it's not a zero tax country, but due to some nuances of how it works, if Georgia is a place that you want to live, you can also get quite favorable taxes there. We like their tax system. We used to love doing companies there as well, but the banking has become sort of a pain. Anyway, continuing on from Georgia. We have Bulgaria. So Bulgaria basically has a flat 10% tax. On dividends, it's a 5% tax. You should, if you structure yourself properly, you should basically never pay more than 7.5% tax. So if you don't know how to do that, reach out to us. We're happy to help you. That's a whole other conversation. So there you go. Moving from Bulgaria, I guess let's see here. So that's the sixth one, right? We had Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, UAE, Georgia, Bulgaria. The next we can look at is Montenegro. Montenegro has nice 9% tax if people want to live there. That's great. You know, decent way to go. So that's our seventh. Then we have Cyprus. Okay, Cyprus. There's a special regime that you can take advantage of. Again, you can potentially pay quite low tax. Okay. Next, going along, you have Malta. Okay. Malta, interestingly, for Maltese people, is not so great, but for foreigners who are willing to move there, especially depending on your type of income and structure of your business, etc., it can be very low tax. That's our ninth place. Then we have Andorra. Okay, Andorra is potentially quite low tax. Again, you know, Andorra is a really small place. In general, like I would notice that very few people seem to want to move to Malta and Cyprus. Kind of their islands are a little bit removed. There's not that much going on, etc. But you know, for some people, it could be great. Anyway, in Andorra, if you like just skiing, there's great skiing there. You know, it's a place that works fairly well, and you can pay low tax, potentially 0%, but typically 10% on that. So hey, that's another way to go. I'm going to skip over. There's some of those we could go through that have special tax regimes. So I'll come back to those in a minute and kind of fill you in on them. But right now we're just kind of flipping through the places that it's the normal regime that you would pay tax on. So all right, going across the country, or across the ocean now, we're going to come to Panama. Okay, Panama is, I think that's our 11th place that you can pay very low taxes. So again, this benefits from a territorial tax system. There's something called the Friendly Nations Visa. There's like a ton of visa programs in Panama, but that's potentially one that's sort of attractive. I'm not going to cover over the Caribbean islands, although there's a bunch of them. You can watch our other video on zero tax countries. The problem with them is just very few people are going to go relocate there. Places like Bahamas, Cayman Islands, etc. So we'll go from there. So we're going to go down to 3 in Latin America. So these are Paraguay. Again, Paraguay territorial tax, quite attractive. Uruguay, territorial tax, fairly low tax, quite attractive. And Chile. Now, Chile starts my my subject of these other alternative tax systems. So this is like the top 13 places, I guess, that we've got that you could move for low tax. If you're willing to do, so the Chile program is only for 3 years, okay, so not so attractive. If you want to do other programs like that, Portugal has the non-habitual residency regime. I'll do a separate video on that. It's not it can be complicated depending on what it is that you're looking for, so it's so-so. Spain has the Ley Beckham, which is another program that, you know, so-so if it can apply to you, that's good. And then in a few of these other countries, like I did a video on Slovenia, if you're up to a certain income and you meet certain criteria, etc., you can be in an okay situation. So there's a few of these places where you can get reasonable returns. There's also some places, say in the Middle East, like Qatar, etc. The problem is they're not necessarily so easy to immigrate, etc. So we tend to focus on UAE. But anyway, that gives you kind of the laundry list of places that people would typically move. Okay, so you know, whether one of those is right for you or not, tough to say. That's totally a personal decision. I always tell people who talk to me, they're like, hey, where should I move? I'm like, well, where would you want to live? Let's figure out where it is that's best for you, that you actually enjoy the lifestyle, and then let's figure out how to optimize the tax around that. And if you're willing to be flexible, you know, that's going to help us a little bit figure out, you know, what is the best option. So yeah, those are the kind of common 13 plus whatever it is I just listed 4 or something places. I guess you could throw in Greece and Italy with their new regimes there, if you're, you know, sufficiently high income earner and willing to meet those criteria. So yeah, if you are interested in any of those or other ones, you know, please reach out to me, book a call, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer, link below. If you have some comments or questions about these, put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, smash the subscribe button, click the notification bell to get notified of all of our future videos you don't want to miss out. And check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com for help on all these sorts of subjects. I'm going to see you guys on the next video.